Okay, so I've got 3 cups of flour here. This is AP flour. I'm going to stick it in the bowl here. We are making fruit cake, but we're using the reverse creaming method. So that's why you see me putting the flour in first. And I've got a cup of butter, so that's 2 sticks. So that was 3 cups of flour, 2 sticks of butter. And over here, after this gets combined and it's going to look a little sandy, then I can add the teaspoon of ginger, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So once this is creamed together, just the flour and the butter, and I get those rest of the dry in there. After that, then I'm going to get to, this is my fruit that's been soaking in rum. I filled the jar with cut up dried fruit to take up all the space it could, and then once the jar was filled with dried fruit, I poured rum all the way to the tippy top. I cut up some vanilla bean in there as well. You can see the lines for that. And this has been soaking for a couple of weeks now. It's best to try to start this right after Thanksgiving, but at least a couple of weeks is perfectly fine. So anyways, here we go. I'm going to combine flour and softened butter for the reverse creaming method. This way the flour gets coated in the butter, and when we go to add our wet ingredients, it will be impossible to develop too much gluten and overmix because the flour will be coated in fat. Ah! Cut. Okay. I should have softened the butter just a tiny bit more, but it'll work through it. Anyway, that was just the 1 kick of flour. It'll be fine. So here it goes. If you want to look in here, when you're creaming butter and flour, it's not quite the same as creaming butter and sugar, but it will coat the flour. It just takes a little bit longer. When you cream butter and sugar, sugar's technically a wet ingredient. Flour is definitely not a wet ingredient. So by coating the flour in the fat, it's going to keep it from absorbing too much wetness and keep it from developing too much gluten. So it'll be impossible to overmix. I got to get that timer. This will keep going. That's going to need more time. If you want to look in the oven here, these are fruitcake in process. They've only been in there about 20 minutes. They definitely need more time. You can tell that they're still wet. I'm going to give it at least another 15 minutes. There we go. I'm going to turn that lower oven back on. I don't know why I did that. Okay. Got the oven back on. And the timer on the upper oven. This is still going. I need to scrape down the beater to get that big hunk of butter off of there. Get that right out of there. Split that up again. And one more thing I need to measure is my sugar. So this was 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of butter, and we're going to go with 1 cup of sugar. Fruitcake is not super sweet. So right now, with this butter coating the flour, we're on a good way to getting everything coated there. Adding the sugar now is going to help it get broken up. So I'm going to go ahead and do the sugar, cup of sugar. There it goes. And the sugar is going to act like little shards to break up the butter more to get it around that fat. So still no liquid, okay? Reverse creaming method to keep us from overmixing. And that's fine because having a few chunks of butter is okay. The main thing is that the butter got in contact with all the flour. So now I can add my salt, my baking powder, that was 2 teaspoons each, and then only 1 teaspoon of the ginger. I like just using ginger and not a ton of spices because this way, if accidentally your dog got a bite, not a problem, because we can't have cinnamon or nutmeg for dogs, or cloves. Here we go. But obviously the fruitcake is for us. It's just I wouldn't want an accident to be worse than an accident by the ingredients. So that's why I don't put cinnamon and nutmeg or cloves or anything like that. Just ginger. And this also has candied ginger in the jar. So ginger twice. Candied ginger and the ground ginger in here. But that's really the only spice. So that's nice and crumbly now. So I'm going to add about half of this jar. When the vanilla beans are kind of stuck at the top, I'm going to have to use the scissors to get them cut in there. But first I want to dump out as much as I can without spilling it. Woo! There it goes. Look at all that rum going in there. The rum and the eggs is the only liquid that goes in this recipe. I was using Alton Brown's recipe for a long time, but I realized I don't need apple juice. So I'm going to take these vanilla beans out one at a time. I had split them to make sure they were going to give the flavor off, but now I'm not going to waste them. I'm not throwing them out, so they're getting cut up in here. If you can chew on a piece of soak-dried fruit, you can chew on a piece of soak-dried vanilla bean. No big deal. Just cut it up as small as you can. Get that in there. And remember, it's fine that we've got this rum soaking on the flour there because that flour has been coated in butter, so it's not going to have a problem. Get this nice and cut up in there. Got one more. Nice big vanilla beans. On Amazon, you can get grade B vanilla beans, which is what they use for making extract anyway, and you always use some kind of alcohol to make your extract. So if you get grade B vanilla beans, which are less expensive, and then you make your extract, you can still cut them up and impart a huge amount of flavor into your recipe. Alright, so we got all that in there. We're going to get about half the fruit in there. Alright, a little more than half. Okay, mix this for a minute and then we're going to get 4 eggs in there. So just to get it combined a little bit. But again, it's impossible to overmix at this point. So it's going to look gummy. It's going to look like, oh my gosh, what did I do? There's not enough liquid or whatever. But there will be when you get the eggs. So here we go. We get the eggs. Get 4 eggs. There we go. That's all trash. Quick rinse. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to pull this back up and turn it on. And it's okay to go let the dog out because it's impossible to overmix because we did reverse creaming method. When she sees out, he goes out. No worries. Alright, so that's really good. I could even go on high if I wanted to make sure. Just use the velocity to get it off the beater better. Alright, so again, I'm not afraid of it over mixing because reverse creaming method. It's impossible. This looks really good. I'm just going to scrape down the beater real quick. Give it one more quick spin to make sure I got everything together, but I think I did. Here we go. And that looks good. So now, unplug for safety and get the beater off. Scrape it down. So this is definitely thicker than a muffin batter, because a muffin batter you'd be able to pour. This is a spackle your house batter. No, it's stiff, but again, with the reverse creaming method, that's okay. The fact that it's this stiff and somewhere between a drop cookie dough and muffin batter is perfectly fine. There's my beaters over there. Okay. So I can get these out of the way. And this is the easiest part. I got smaller loaf pans this year. These are going to be individual fruitcakes. But I'm actually going to fill it all the way to the top. I probably should have left a little room, but I didn't on the ones that are in the oven, and they look like they're doing fine. So I'm going to go ahead and keep filling them. That looks good. So with the size of these loaf pans, the cooking time's going to vary from what I'm used to, because I used loaf pans that were like 3 times this size last year. So I've been used to it taking like an hour almost, like 45 minutes, when it's like 3 times this size. So that's why when I put the other batch in just now, I said 20 minutes to start, but you could see clearly it was not done at 20 minutes. So we're going to see what the timing turns out to be, but I've got the oven at 350, and because these are small, they could take anywhere between 20 minutes and I doubt 40 minutes, but I guess it's possible. 40 minutes is what the other one took, so we'll see. But that's the idea. We're going to use all this batter and get these filled up, and then 350 until a toothpick or a knife comes out clean. And once they're out of the oven, you can take a little bit of extra rum. I like to do somewhere around a teaspoon at a time for these. And I would just put the rum right on top of the fruitcake as it's cooling, and that will help prevent it from cracking as it cools. And it'll also help with the moisture level of the cake, because a lot of moisture escapes out as steam as soon as they come out of the oven. And it will help with the aging process and the flavor. So even with all the rum you saw on that fruit in the jar, it's still going to get more rum when it comes out of the oven. So I don't know why fruitcake gets a bad rap. I've been making these for, I want to say 8 years now. Not quite the same amount of time we've been married, but pretty close. And every year I think they get better, and I also make more of them. And every year, the people that I give them to are surprised that they now like fruitcake, because as it turns out, they've just never had it made right. This is not like what you get in the store with the neon green candies or the neon red cherries or anything like that. All of the dried fruit that went into this came off of a gift-giving tray that came with a free wooden trivet, because it was so nice of a gift tray. But basically any dried fruit that you'd be willing to put in a trail mix, not raisins, not currants, that's what's gone in here. So dried pineapple, dried ginger, dried papaya, dried mango, dried apple, dried apricot, dried dates, dried plums, which you know as prunes. All those things went in here. Dried apple, dried pear. So all of that went in here and then got soaked in rum, along with some fresh vanilla beans that were soaked in rum. So between all of those good ingredients, and then this year trying the reverse creaming method so that it won't be overmixed at all, not that it ever was, but it's impossible to overmix with the reverse creaming method. Now we're going to have a cake that is not dense, not light and fluffy, but just perfect. Yep, not chewy, that's for sure. That's what happens when people overmix, is the cake becomes tough and chewy because of the overdevelopment of the gluten in the flour. So here we go, almost done filling these. Three more. I'm not going to have enough for that on this. We can put one of those cups back. We're getting there, scraping the bottom of the bowl, as one would say. Here we go. Get that last little bit out. Well, I see one I could add some of this too, but for the most part, I think it's going in this one. It's like frosting a cake using something this small. Okay, got that one there. Don't have enough for those right now. Top this off really fast. I'm not exactly sure what size these little tiny loaf pans are. They were on Amazon. They were around 10 bucks for a big box of them. But they make nice individual servings right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, okay. All right, here we go. Oh, and look at those. You got a good shot of those? Those are going to need another 5 minutes, but they're getting really close. That one on the end looks really big. I'm going to turn that tray around because the ones in the back are getting a little more brown. I'm just going to give it a quick swing. There we go. Whoop! See a little spill? I think that's the tester cake that we're going to eat. It won't be as pretty for the neighbors. Okay. I'm going to set the timer again. So it needs 5 minutes for the first batch for sure. Okay. Thank you for watching. Make fruitcake great again, please.